Welcome to episode 178 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Kenny. Ann Shoemaker, Gen X, joins us to talk about change and self care. Ann is a career advisor, strategist, and coach for executive and aspiring executive women. She applies her 20 plus years of experience as an executive and leader in corporate, nonprofit, privately held, and early stage startups towards supporting and elevating women into positions of influence in their careers and communities. Some of the topics we covered in this episode are finding and exploring your intuition, career success without compromising, control, resilience and shifting energy, and setting boundaries. All kinds of good stuff. So I hope you enjoy the listen, and here you go. Well, Ann, welcome to Girl Take the Lead. I think we're going to have a great conversation today, and so appreciate you being with us. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So why don't we start first, if you would introduce yourself to the viewers or listeners so they get to know you a little bit.
Sure. So I am currently a career advisor, strategist, and coach for executive and aspiring executive women. I am originally a Kentucky girl and grew up playing soccer and running after my big brother, and actually took my pursuit of soccer through college and professional level. And it really helped inform kind of how I wanted to show up in a professional workplace. The first 10 years of my career, I had a series of great mentors and sponsors who really helped me learn and grow. And then when I found myself in an environment that was not as conducive to my growth and where there wasn't somebody kind of sponsoring me, in fact, the opposite, I think that tenacity that I cultivated as a young girl really worked to my benefit as I tried to get out of that situation and ended up starting my own coaching business, which is what I'm doing today.
Oh, so great. And I know you work a lot with your clients who are going through change.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think is key there?
Well, I think the first thing is, there's change that comes to us, right, from external forces that kind of just surprises us and we don't feel like we have any control over it. And that's one kind of change. But the kind of change that most of my clients show up at my door to speak about is kind of an inner stirring, an inner change, an inner voice that's speaking to them, which I would say is their intuition. And they're trying to discern how much volume to give that voice. And so I encourage them to quiet the volume on everything else and turn the volume way up on their intuition and that voice inside of them that's trying to communicate, because I truly believe there's an inner knowing there that needs to be heard. And so I try to hold space for them to explore what that voice is telling them.
So, what are some things that you recommend that they do to sort of be quiet for that moment and be able to listen? Because I think probably when we're going through change, it's like crazy in our heads.
Yes.
So many different voices going on.
So the first thing I would say is to explore, practices that we've all heard about, but take them seriously and make them a discipline, give them a chance. So that might be, a meditation practice, which can start with just a minute of silence and a minute of focusing on your breath, and can work its way up to, many minutes or even hours. But I think what's the most reasonable starting point, maybe a minute or two of silence to allow themselves to settle. And once they get into that practice after maybe a week or so, they will start to hear some of their inner thoughts. So mindfulness, meditation is one practice. Another one could be journaling. Some people have a hard time sitting still. It might be going for a walk, going for a hike in nature, but it needs to be literally quiet around them. So not journaling while the Today Show's on in the background, or journaling while the kids are trying to find their shoes to go to school, but finding a quiet space to have some time to meditate, journal, or maybe go for a walk.
Mm, I love all of those. Check all of the above.
Yes. Yes.
That's really a nice way to take care of ourselves, I think, and listen to us and try and find those things that we're trying to tell ourselves to be able to take care of.
Right. And I think, there's so many voices and messages that are competing for our attention. We know that. We knew that when there was newspapers, we knew it when there was television, and we definitely know it when we're walking around carrying phones in our pockets, that we allow so many voices to occupy such precious space in our hearts and our minds and our souls. And it's really the least we can do to carve out 5 minutes to listen to ourselves, and longer, I think, is over time is what's needed to really find that alignment with our inner knowing and our intuition.
Yeah. Well, I know that you talk a lot about holding the space, I think, for women so that they don't need to compromise things in their personal life for things that they want to achieve. Yeah, what have you learned there?
Oh gosh. There's such growth that can happen when we allow ourselves to take the space that we need, and really pursue the things that are of interest to us, right? If we don't carve out that time, we become um, just what maybe others need us to be or want us to be, but we have to set aside the time and the space. And, coaching is one environment in which women can do that, to listen to ourselves. And as a coach, what I really like to do is just to hold up a mirror and reflect back to someone what I'm hearing, without interpretation, and let them experience what that sounds like, what their self sounds like. Because sometimes they say, well, that's what I said, but that's maybe not what I meant. And they can go deeper and explore themes and ideas on a different level in an environment that allows them to just be themselves and explore and excavate, what they're looking for.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we have something like a goal or a destination that we're trying to get to,
Right.
and it can seem like overwhelming, and you kind of give up, and you just decide to stay small,
Right.
um, and think it's not worth it,
Right.
right? What do you think are the dynamics there? Like, what do you see that prevent us from like moving forward in some cases?
Right. Well, I think there's many stages, but if I had to simplify it, I would say there's two stages. There's the exploration of what it is that I want to do, or the changes I want to make, or the interests I want to explore. And then there's the doing. And
Mhm.
sometimes we can get stuck in the exploration and rumination and considering all the options and trying to make an optimal choice about what it is that we actually want to do. And I don't want to short circuit that process or minimize the importance of that learning and introspection. But I think people can get stuck in not taking a small action, just a small, low risk action, and getting a reaction out of ourselves. I went and had this coffee, or I went and signed up for this class. And after it, I felt relieved, more stressed, it was too much. What's the reaction that we get from these actions that we take? But we don't necessarily learn about the new person we're trying to grow into just by thinking. We learn by doing and by taking an action. So I like to hold space for the thought, but not to camp out there for too long. We need to think about it. We need to make some choices. Then we need to do it. Then we can come back and think again, but we have to do something.
Yeah, I think that's so key because I was a marketing professional for a long time, and when I would introduce a new product, we'd do a test market,
Right.
right? It would be a small um, exercise to see what we got from it before we went national or whatever and spent a great deal more money. And I find these little along the way, there's always going to be some new things to learn and some new challenges to overcome.
Right.
And the small steps, like we think success is getting to the journey, getting to the destination, right?
Right.
And maybe a way for us to look at it is this, that success can just be the start of the journey and what we learn in the journey and
Right.
how we show resilience, right? Through it.
Absolutely. And the adventures that we can go on just by, boarding the train, right? Just by starting the journey. And um, I think sometimes we can be too focused on that end goal and put our blinders on and not be open to all of the other possibilities that can happen when we are willing to say, my intention is to get to point X, and I'm open to what happens along the way. So sometimes, we can say, I'm going and I'm going to do this one thing. And, there may be a different endpoint that the universe might have in mind for you that might be even better than the one that you're pursuing.
Yeah.
So I really like for people to be fully present in their journeys and be fully aware of what shows up for them in their journeys, because it might be something they might end up somewhere better than they had ever imagined
Yeah.
if they don't miss the signs and opportunities.
That's so good because I think sometimes control has a way of jumping in, and we get like our hands are so tight.
Yes.
Like this has got to happen. This
Right.
has got to be the outcome.
Yes.
And, we need to peel back our fingertips so that we can see, like, okay, so it's a journey. It may look like this right now, but tomorrow it could look a lot different.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think sometimes if we are holding too tight to something, we also don't notice when our own energy might shift, right?
Mhm.
Our own energy might say, I really thought I was wanting to go in this one direction. And now I've got some more data. Now I've got some more information. Now I've had these other experiences, and my energy is shifting more towards, going in a slightly different direction. But if all we're focused on is getting to that end point and how it's going to feel and what it's going to be like when we're there, we kind of miss the whole plot sometimes. So
It's like jumping to the end of the book and not going through the reading of it, right?
100%. And that's the joy of it. That's why we're doing it. So it's great.
I know. Is there anything else you would tell the younger generations?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's a good one, is just be accepting of the changes that come, which is hard when it happens. I was actually just on a call with a young woman who has had to face a really difficult career circumstance very early in her career, and it's caused a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And my heart goes out for her. And when I spoke with her maybe 2 months ago, she was in the thick of it. This isn't good for me, and I've got to get out of here. And I don't even know if it's been 2 months. It might have just been 6 weeks. And she's now kind of in the final round of an interview process that would have brought her tremendous anxiety. And what she said on this call this morning was, hey, I've seen the worst of it. And it is not this interview, it's something much worse. And so I guess how I would kind of put that into advice or something is, those hard times are really awful. They really are. And that's the stress and anxiety of it that people experience is real. And it's going to make everything else so much better on the other side. Those things that used to get you so cranked up just won't. And I really don't know that it's something people need to hear when they're in the midst of something hard. I don't think it's a helpful message in the midst of something, but I think we can look back on those hard times and say, wow, I'm a different person because of that. And I kind of like this version better.
Yeah, I definitely can see that resilience, that muscle is definitely one that we just keep building
Yeah. Yeah. And
and
it's
all
it's
the
hard. We have to
challenges.
earn it. You know,
So
it
gotta
can't
work at
come, it can't come through a book. It can't come through a movie. I mean, we really have to go through those hard times. And um, yeah, I think that's, kind of gets back to the importance of having a support system in place all the time, so that
it.
when those hard times come, you're not going through it alone and you have a witness. But it is hard. It is
Yeah.
hard.
So, what would you tell your 20 something self today? Because I guess you must have been like destined for soccer, right? In your 20s.
Well, I thought so. I knew that it would end at some point, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to pursue that interest. I think what I thought, if I'm being really honest, is growing up, I had been very much the stereotypical girl and young woman that I'm trying to parent. I'm trying to parent my daughter differently, but very much a people pleaser, very much kind of trying to play by the rules, and very much believed that if I put my head down and worked hard, good things would happen for me.
Oh,
And that worked.
girlfriend, you and I are so alike for that.
Yes. And I think so many girls, at least in the United States, if not worldwide, it's just like, put your head down and work and good things will happen. Like it'll come. And it did until it didn't. And
Mhm.
I think so. If I think about my younger self, I would say, and it's kind of hard and kind of callous almost to think of how to say this. So let me try to talk this out for a minute. But you know, it's going to take more and different skills than just um, being the best you can be. You need to develop a network. You might want to have a plan B. You might want to, build things around you, and supports around you that you can kind of fall back on. Because I think when it's kind of the message is be the best you can be and good things will happen to you, that's more of you, that's positioning you as like the receiver of good things and goodwill from other people.
Right.
And I guess I would say be a little more independent of what can I do for myself,
Mm.
even if somebody else isn't sitting there saying, wow, you're really great at that, I want to promote you, or wow, you're really great at that, I want to hire you. It's still requiring somebody else. So I think I would say, like, what can I independently manage and drive for myself? I don't know exactly what that is. So if that's the next question, I don't know if I can answer that, but I really have a huge respect for people who are able to carve their own path in the midst of a lot of, failures, or people who, the path isn't easy for. I had an easy path for about 30 years, and then it was really hard.
Mhm.
So I think that, again, back to that resilience, if I'd had some of these setbacks, like this young woman that I was speaking with today, at an earlier point in my career, she doesn't know it, but I'm sitting here saying, no one will ever push you to that point again, to where you're so miserable and so unhappy. Like, she has met her boundary. I met mine much later. So I guess kind of knowing what our limits are maybe is another aspect of independence that I'm trying to communicate. Understanding our boundaries. I don't think I developed boundaries till much later in life, and that worked against me when I didn't have them earlier.
I don't even think I knew the word until I was well into my 60s. So anybody who's getting it a lot sooner, I'm like, go
Yes.
for it. Get it so much sooner.
Yes. Yes. And yes, I do think that is something that this, as I mentioned, this client, that I think she now has a respect for, and it was hard won. It's
But
hard.
it's hard. I think it's difficult um, when we put a boundary down. Our bodies go, "Ugh," and everything kind of reacts, and you kind of have to, give yourself time to process and be okay with it. It takes, at least that's been my experience so far.
Yes. And I think it's that unlearning. I hold a lot of society responsible for this. I'm trying to at least be in my corner of the world a different force when it comes to expectations of boundaries, and helping, I have a daughter and my son, helping them understand what is their work to do. And I'm not talking about work, but like, what is their obligation or commitment in certain circumstances and what is not,
Yeah.
and so that they are showing up as a good friend, but not as a codependent friend.
Yeah.
They're showing up at, my own roles, like in the community, like I will do the volunteer work and I will also rest. I'm not going to do all of the volunteering. And there's, as you said, like there's a kind of a sympathetic nervous system or something reaction sometimes when you say, oh, but they need people to help with such and such, and I am free on that night. And I could do it. And at the same time, as an older person now, I'm saying, I do not have to. I could, but I do not have to. And what is mine to do and what is somebody else's to do? And releasing the ownership of doing everything for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I could listen to you forever.
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
You and I have just so similar points of view on things that it's just so nice to discover that. Yeah, I definitely think when I was in my 20s, I had taken on the definition of success from, you know, getting my MBA and
Right.
institutions that were teaching me to achieve and do more and more and more. And I always thought I always thought I was supposed to be a CEO. And so I would be in my organizations looking at what the CEO did and what they were like. And I kept going, yeah, it's not so interesting.
Yeah.
And so I took a different route to be an expert in launching new products because it was a lot of creativity for me and I liked it a lot. All the little decisions and overcoming things, challenges that I needed to when I would launch a product. But it took me a long time to reconcile that I was not a failure because I did not become a CEO. Like I only became an executive vice president of marketing.
Which is an accomplishment. Yes.
But it was almost like I needed to, let that go.
Right.
And I think sometimes when we have those kinds of ambitions and destinations in mind, like we were talking about that control, letting go of it, reframing it, making everything that we are doing, just perfect. It's just exactly as it should be.
Absolutely. And that to me brings us back around to that inner knowing
Yeah.
and making that time to listen to what is it you really want, because I had similar ambitions. I don't know if it was like CEO specifically, but like position of power, position of influence, etc. And what I have learned in the letting go of that um, is what I really always wanted was, and I have realized this recently, is a lot of what I have actually got for myself. I really always wanted to be financially secure, which was part of that status that I saw was, oh, if I'm a person of influence, person, of power in an organization, that I will have that financial security that I had always needed and wanted. And I wanted a very like stable home life, which is something that I did not have, growing up. So it's kind of like one of these moments, it's like that frontal lobe like closes or whatever. But for me, it was probably in my 40s where I kind of looked around and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I always wanted. I just thought the vehicle to get me there was being in a big corporation and having all of it. But there's a million pathways to
Exactly.
get.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anne.
I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us. Join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we're also on YouTube Music, where you can see a video of this episode. Here are 3 takeaways. 1. One type of change that comes to us is via our intuition, a kind of inner steering, and we try to discern how much volume to give that inner voice. Key is to be quiet and quiet everything else so we can hear our inner voice and find our inner knowing. Mindful meditation or journaling can help find the silence and quiet. 2. We don't need to compromise ourselves. We can find our own space to just be us. Exploring what we want to do and who we are is not enough. We need to take action and do it. It can start with action that is low risk, so we learn and adjust. And 3, most of us think success is reaching a destination, but the journey and the steps taken can also be success. Control can jump in and derail our efforts. If we hold on too tight, we can miss our own energy shifts. Our next episode will continue to be about self-care, our theme for July, and build on what we heard today. It'll be a soundbite about control, a topic that came up with Anne, and one we might be a little familiar with, particularly all us overachievers. Please join us again and talk to you soon. Bye.